So good evening, everyone. I'm Shauna Lawson. I'm the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations and Annual Giving at UW-Tacoma. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our virtual alumni speaker series. Thank you for joining us. We will get started with the Share the Land acknowledgement first. So we recognize that all of us at UW-Tacoma learn, live, and work on or near the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people. In particular, we are situated on the traditional territory of the Puyallup. As people on this occupied territory, we have a responsibility to acknowledge the land, the ancestors who have cared for this land since time immemorial, and all our indigenous connections today. We also have the responsibility to acknowledge the histories of dispossession and forced removal that have allowed for the growth and survival of this institution. In light of this history, let us go ahead and take active efforts to partner with our indigenous community members and neighbors as we continue our work together as a community of learners, leaders, and educators. We do ask that you remain muted during the interview portion. After the interview, if there is time, we will go ahead and take questions via the chat, or you can come off of mute. If you are experiencing technical difficulties, please note it in the chat and we will assist. So I'll now turn this over to our interviewer, Leland Adams. He's our student from Milgard School of Business. He's involved with Milgard's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council and the Dressel Scholars Program.
Thank you, Shauna. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to quickly provide some background on Ty, and then we'll get the questions rolling and just have a good time. Alrighty. So our speaker today, Mr. Ty Reed, is a proud UW-Tacoma alumni who accomplished graduating with 2 degrees. Since entering recovery in 2016, he has used the lessons he learned in his journey to inspire, educate, and others about addiction, recovery, and the importance of second chance employment. Through his nonprofit, Recovery Care Services, which he has dedicated to helping people in recovery find and keep employment, he provides career coaching and development to assist individuals in rebuilding and rescuing their professional lives. He also works for Workforce Snohomish as a business engagement project manager. Ty loves to be a public speaker, using storytelling, workshops, and webinars to communicate his message to those in recovery, their families, and the business community about the importance of desperation, hope, and second chances. His message is simple. No matter what happened in the past, there is always hope for redemption and healing. Alrighty. What an incredible bio by our alumni speaker today. So without further ado, let's get right into this webinar. Are y'all ready for tonight? I've been waiting all week. The anticipation has been, it's incredible. So I'm glad you guys are here with us today. So Ty, thank you for joining us again today. So let's hop right into some simple questions and get it started.
Sound great. Sound great. Yeah, you almost made me sound respectable with that intro. Good job, Leland. Pressure's on now.
Well, it's a pleasure to do this with you. All right. So Ty, can you tell us a little bit about the company that you work for right now and your current role in it?
Yeah, number one, thanks. Thank you, Leland. Thank you, University of Washington Tacoma, for giving me this opportunity to be here tonight. And thanks to everybody who's joined us. I am actually a really lucky guy because what I do in my day job matches very closely what I do in my passion project, which is my nonprofit. For my day job, I work for Workforce Snohomish, which is one of the 12 workforce development councils here in Washington State. And what we focus on is workforce development for businesses. And what does that mean? That means that we work with employers on how they can attract, retain, and upskill their workforces. And so a lot of stuff is involved. What I do is business engagement. So I spend a tremendous amount of time talking to employers in the community about their needs and about how they can source workers, hold on to the workers that they have, and provide training for their workforces.
Yeah. Okay. What a background. Okay, so the second question that I wanted to ask you today was, what is kind of involved in that recovery process of helping people, get that second chance and, helping them recover their career? So like, what helps them stay on track, and how do you come in and, do what you do?
Sure. First of all, I just want to say I think second chance employment is incredibly important. And for those of you on the call who aren't familiar with what that is, second chance employment is defined as the practice of providing employment opportunities for individuals who have come from disadvantaged backgrounds, either because of their choices or because of their life circumstances. So when you think about a second chance employee or a second chance applicant, primarily what we're talking about are individuals who have been impacted by the criminal justice system. And obviously communities of color have been pretty significantly impacted by the criminal justice system. So in many cases, what we're talking about are individuals from marginalized groups who are trying to work their way back into employment. And unfortunately, there's a pretty big stigma that comes along with either being A, in recovery from addiction or alcoholism, or B, having previously been incarcerated. And those things help to hamper the opportunities that many individuals face. And so one of the things that I spend a lot of time doing is working directly with individuals who have been previously incarcerated or people that are in recovery to try to help them figure out how to get back into the workforce. And it really is, unfortunately, it's a problem that we can never have too many people working on because the problem is so big. And if you'd asked me 10 years ago if I'd be working in this field, I probably would have told you no. But like many people, my current circumstances and what I do are pretty heavily influenced by what I've been through. I was, after I left UW Tacoma in 1998, I had a pretty successful run working in the financial services industry and doing some sales and some business development, even managed to get an MBA from Maine campus and graduated in 2009. But for much of that time, I was living a double life because I was also pretty heavily addicted to alcohol and drugs and was kind of keeping it a secret. And, I realized that not a lot of people who are watching this can relate to the feeling of being a hardcore drug addict and a very heavy alcoholic, but a lot of people can probably relate to the feelings that I was trying to escape. And I have for a long time had issues with identity for various reasons, and have also had a lot of self-esteem issues where I felt like if people knew the real me, that they probably would reject me and I wouldn't be good enough. And so I was really, drinking and using to avoid those feelings. And it started out as fun in the beginning, but unfortunately it wasn't so fun after a while. And by 2014, I was unemployable and homeless, living on the streets of Seattle and some parts of Everett as well. And spent some time going to jail and spent some time going to rehab and not doing so well. And I got committed to a mental institution and also survived a couple of suicide attempts, and was really lucky enough in 2016 to get sober. And as I began my journey back to being employable again, I was very surprised at how difficult the journey was for somebody like me. And when I say somebody like me, I mean somebody who has been lucky, has had some education, had some great work history. And despite that, because I had some convictions on my record, the first job that I was able to get was part-time as a janitor. Now that's honorable work, don't get me wrong, and it's necessary work, but I started thinking about if somebody who's been as fortunate as me with the background that I have has that type of trouble getting quality employment, what's it like for people who haven't been as lucky as me? Plus the fact that I interview pretty well. So employers tend to like me. When I go to meet parents of girlfriends, the parents tend to like me. Eventually the girlfriends don't like me, but the parents always like me, right? So, if I have, people have that kind of experience and yet I still have trouble getting employment, I can only imagine what it would be like for someone who, hasn't had the educational background or maybe didn't have the work history. And as I got further in my sobriety in 2019, 2020, I started really thinking about ways that I could maybe help people that were kind of walking that same path. And employment is so important to somebody who's trying to do the right thing, continuing to do the right thing. Employment was the thing I kind of kept coming back to as an area where I could help folks. And I feel really fortunate and honored in a lot of cases to be able to be part of somebody's comeback story. So I'm glad to be able to talk about that and glad I get to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're glad you're here to share and continue to inspire others who are dealing with that and, continue to do the work that you do. So thank you. Okay, so we're kind of going to transition into the next question, which I think kind of fits the story well. So I guess what I want to say is during that period, you know, maybe where you were not doing so well, where you kind of felt yourself struggling, were there some role models, some mentors, or other leaders in your life that kind of came in and, you know, added value and helped you grow? You know, are they still around today, or, you know, how do you even find the right person to help you do that?
The person that was probably the greatest mentor for me, and it's sometimes also my greatest enemy, was my father. Frankly, you know, my dad is tough love dad, and you know, a lot of love, but you know, sometimes it comes with a little dose of reality. And you know, I'm not proud to say that I put my family through a lot in my addiction, and even in, you know, in my recovery. And the constant that I had was my father. And you know, my father he's a very inspirational guy. Grew up dirt poor in the 50s in the deep South. Didn't have running water in his house. He was 15 years old. Education wasn't important in his family. He's the oldest of 9. And you know, through education and hard work and treating people the right way, has really been able to build a life where he is pretty respected in his community, and frankly takes care of a lot of other people's kids. And you know, one of the things that is great about my dad, and one of the things that always drove me crazy, he's always right. And you know, he told me for a really long time that, you know, the way that I was living my life was going to lead me to some pretty dark and lonely places, and he was absolutely right. But at the same time, he also told me that when I was ready to start doing the right things, that he and the family would be there to support me. And you know, luckily for me, he kept that promise to me. And once I was ready to start rebuilding my life and doing the right things, you know, they were there to support me as best they could. And our relationship today is way better than it has ever been, quite frankly, which is a pretty big testament, because you know, not so long ago they were thinking about whether they were gonna have to bury me. So, and really had to emotionally disconnect from me because of the fear that they had around how I was living my life. So it's one of the most valuable relationships that I have. And he's somebody that I still go to this day for advice about various things. And I feel, you know, absolutely blessed to have that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's in a condition like that, there's no better mentor, right? You know, to have that support system that you can always come back to, and people who are gonna, you know, show you that eternal love. So I'm glad that they were able to do that for you. Alrighty, we're gonna keep it rolling. So right now, as a professional, or maybe as you were as a student, what are some interests or resources that you wish you had spent more time involved in? You know, like what are some things that you maybe, if we turn back the hands of time, you're like, shoot, I could have done way more in that, or I could have pursued that a little harder, or like I said, or even as a professional right now, what does that look like for you?
Well, if I think back to my time at UW-Tacoma, I definitely wish I had more of an opportunity to get involved with some of the social aspects and community aspects of the university. When I attended, I was in a committed relationship with a small child. I was working 40 to 50 hours a week and trying to study as well. So frankly, I didn't really have a lot of time. I just didn't have the bandwidth to be able to engage in some of the activities that UW-Tacoma was offering. But that is my one regret, because as a result, you know, I have connections that I made, you know, from the MBA program being on main campus, but because I had so little time, you know, just personal time when I was at UW-Tacoma, I don't really have the kind of relationships from my time there that I wish I did. I frankly don't really have any relationships from my time there, because I had no outside time whatsoever. So that's the biggest regret that I have, especially because, you know, I was kind of there during the infancy in a lot of ways of UW-Tacoma, and they were making a real effort to kind of build a community there. And because of my personal situation, I wasn't really able to be a part of that. So that's probably the biggest regret that I have, is just not having built those connections and those long-term friendships.
Gotcha. I know that, you know, UW-Tacoma as it stands today, you know, has come a long way. And, even despite being a commuter campus, I think they do an incredible job of, trying to engage students nowadays and, different resources or programs that they offer. I know myself, I'm involved in a number of them, and I'm really appreciative of, how far that they have gone to really turn that culture around. So, okay. So I got another question for you, and I think this is going to hit home for a lot of people here. So what did you do, or what are you continuing to do to protect your mental health during the COVID-19 impact? And, how do you practice maybe that work-life balance, or that, COVID-19 and fun balance these days?
Well, I eat a lot of cake. That's
I
part
eat
of
a
it
lot of
for
ice cream.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people that says that I'm going to live my life without sweets. I make sure that, I get some sugar.
Yeah.
But the other thing, I exercise, quite a bit. I play a lot of pickleball. I lift weights. I try to eat, healthfully most of the time, but more than anything, I try to stay connected to the small circle of friends that I have, on a pretty regular basis, and my family as well. And frankly, I pretty actively avoid news and media. I work in the kind of business where the thing about addiction and recovery and incarceration is that it crosses, every line. It crosses the race barrier, it crosses political barriers, it crosses socioeconomic, barriers as well. And so I never want the amount of compassion and empathy that I have for another human being to be colored by my feelings about a particular party or particular groups of people. So in order for me to remain the most emotionally healthy that I can, I have a wonderful girlfriend. She is a 24-hour news junkie. I'm confident that if a comet is hurtling towards the earth and we're all going to die, that she'll let me know. And so I really, I don't watch the news at all. And I'm on social media very little. I'm on Facebook, but I've unfollowed pretty much everybody except for 10 people, basically family, close friends. So not a bunch of stuff shows up in my news feed. I'm on LinkedIn, but again, I don't follow a million people. I use it to make business connections. So I pretty purposely cultivate the type of environment. And so I try to control what I put into my body and what I put into my mind as well, because if I consume the wrong things, then my mind can start to go a little sideways. And, one of the things I definitely noticed during the pandemic, especially that period where we were really kind of locked down and isolated. So gyms weren't open, movie theaters weren't open. I attend some 12-step meetings. 12-step meetings were only online. She couldn't go in person. And that was really tough for me. Honestly, it was really tough. And it really did a number on me. And I have tried to put some things in place to kind of keep me, in a rhythm. I'm a creature of habit. So I read 10 pages every day. Even if I don't want to read, I always read 10 pages of something every day. I try to move a little bit every day. I try to, get quiet in some parts of the day, and I try to, accomplish some things. But that, keeping connected and staying off of, isolating myself from certain influences are super, super important to my mental health and well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in a common age of kind of like you said, we ingest a lot of information, right? We're constantly, being exposed to information. And so we have to be careful, what we consume, so that we don't, go numb, to the wrong things, or we don't, get on those unhealthy habits. So I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay, quick poll for everybody: cake or ice cream? I'm an ice cream guy. Ty's a cake guy. Shauna, are you a ice cream person?
Cake.
Yeah.
Ice cream.
Cake. Ice cream. Okay, there we go. I got some support.
Cake.
Exactly.
Oh no, now I'm back down.
Ice cream.
Okay.
Ice cream
Okay.
cake.
Oh, ice cream.
Yeah, both.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, have it your way. Have it your way. Okay. Well, I think we're gonna go into our last question before maybe we start a little bit of Q&A. But if not, we also have some more questions that I definitely would love to ask Ty.
Yeah, go for it.
Alrighty. So one of the last questions of the day, or excuse me, of the night. It's dark out now. What is one piece of advice that you would give to current students?
There's a couple of pieces of advice that I would give, but the biggest piece of advice that I would give is actually something that you and I discussed not too long ago, Leland, is, for students who are starting to consider their career options once they leave the educational arena, think about your career in terms of your next 2 jobs. And there's a reason why I say that. So if you're thinking about your career as more than, and when I say the next 2 jobs, either the next 2 companies or maybe the next 2 positions within a certain organization, because if you do that, then that is, if you think about the next job after the one you're going to get, it's going to determine the type of mentors that you get. It's going to determine the type of learning that you try to do while you're within that position. And ultimately, it's going to inform the type of professional development that you're going to focus on to get to what that next job is. And the other thing is that if you are really clear about what it is that you want to do long term, that's also going to help to inform the choices that you're going to make about your career. And I'll give you an example. So if you're like Leland and you're a business management major, and you decide that at some point in your life you want to be a CEO, then that first job that you take, if you have an opportunity at a big company to go, take a position, and maybe it pays pretty well, but you're going to be pretty limited in the exposure that you're going to get to different parts of the business, it may be a better decision for you to go to that slightly smaller company, maybe make a little less money to begin with, but be able to learn a bunch of different parts of the operation, because CEOs tend to be really well-rounded people. And if your long-term goal is to be that CEO, what you want to get is exposure to lots of different parts of a company and learn how they all function and how they interplay with each other. So that's what I mean when, obviously you've got financial realities. Everybody's got to make money. Everybody got to pay bills. Everybody got to buy cake, right? But, also you want to think about your career more holistically as opposed to thinking about it on a transactional basis. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. And also, make sure that you are really focusing on your professional development. Once you get inside a company, the company's they're gonna teach you the stuff that you're gonna need to do your job. But most companies aren't gonna be incredibly invested in what side personal development stuff you do. Some companies will, don't get me wrong, but most companies are gonna count on you to kind of handle that yourself and grow in the direction that you want to take your career. So, don't just show up and do your 40 hours or 50 hours and call it good. Really, even if you need to consult with a mentor or get some coaching about the types of professional development you should be doing, make sure you focus on that, because in the long run, it's kind of like compound interest. The earlier that you start with your professional development, then in the long run, the more it's going to pay off.
Okay. The next 2 jobs. Okay. I will definitely take that to heed and seek that. Alrighty, so it looks like we do have a fair amount of extra time, so I might jump around some of the questions that we have left over for you.
Sure, go for it.
See, what would you say to students who are nervous about, maybe so let's say that, my degree is business management, right? But maybe I spiral off and, I have a sudden interest in computer science. What would you say to the students who are, nervous about not specifically working in their field of study, who may have to pivot because that's, the reality of the job market? Sometimes, it's not always going to be the cakewalk right out of school. So what would advice, or, what would you say to those students to maybe be like, hey, don't worry about it, or maybe some other advice that you could, share with us?
They should absolutely panic. No, I'm kidding. Totally kidding. So it's, don't worry at all. So I think I read a statistic that said on average, most people have 7 jobs in their lifetime. So, don't worry if you're not using your degree specifically in what you want to do. Most people don't, actually. I mean, my undergraduate degree was in marketing and management. My MBA is in marketing and entrepreneurship. So I guess I'm kind of using my entrepreneurship degree with my nonprofit, but for most of my career, I worked in sales and business development, which really had absolutely nothing to do with what my degree was. But there were a what my degree did for me was it gave me a basket of transferable skills that I could point at when an employer asked me about it, right? So even if you're not, even if you're going from business management to computer science, the thing that you probably have that computer scientists need is critical thinking, right? You know how to analyze data sets, you know how to work with large batches of information. So if you can focus on the transferable skills, even if you're not necessarily specifically in your degree, you're going to be just fine. And don't really sweat the fact that you're not using that degree specifically, for your career.
Gotcha. Okay. All righty. I think I might ask a question that's off the script right now. So I think I would like to ask you, in your work, obviously, you touch a lot of people's lives, and you're very active in helping them earn that second chance and earning opportunity to really impact and change their life. So I think I'd love for you, if you're comfortable, to share maybe a story that impacted you most, or from your work with that person, or maybe gave you a different perspective or outlook on how you wanted to handle working with people going forward.
Yeah, the thing that has probably impacted my outlook on how I work with people, I not only work with folks that have been previously incarcerated, but I work with a lot of people in recovery. And much of society tells us that recovery looks like abstinence. And if you're going to be in recovery, that means you're not going to drink, you're not going to consume any drugs, including marijuana and all that. But I last year, I took a certified peer counselor training for the state of Washington. And what I have learned, which really informs how I work with people now, is that recovery looks different for everybody. For some people, for a guy like me, abstinence is the only way to go. And the debate about whether or not I can drink or do drugs is like long over. But for some people, recovery looks like, instead of drinking 6 beers a night, they're drinking 3 beers a night, so they can get to work on time the next day, and they don't have all the negative impacts to their lives. And so what it really says is that I have to meet people where they are. And if where they are is getting to 3 beers a night, great. Let's work with some strategies so we can make sure that this drinking that you're engaging in doesn't impact the rest of your life, especially, your personal life and your career. And that really is the way it is with a lot of folks. Even with relatives that we have. We have people have relatives. And everybody's got one crazy family member. So we have relatives that say they're doing their best, and sometimes their best might not be what we would hope for them. But if we can show some compassion and some empathy and just kind of meet them where they are, in a lot of cases, we can help folks along the way improve their lives slowly. And so that is probably the biggest lesson I had to learn, because I was not one of those people that thought that you could have recovery and still drink and maybe smoke a little weed every now and then. That just wasn't how I thought. But my perspective has been totally changed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Expressing that empathy and expressing that compassion. For people who are in different situations, you have to be understanding, and I think that's really important, especially with people who may be dealing with addiction, like you said, or mental health problems. Like having that compassion, having that understanding for them, I think that's truly important. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I kind of do have another one that might build off of that a little bit. So what has your experience been like working through the pandemic and pretty much running your nonprofit and trying to keep that going? And how was that difficult? And I'm sure it is still difficult. Like we're not totally back to normal. Don't know when that is going to be, but how has that process been? How have you maybe had to pivot or shift what you normally do to be successful and keep that nonprofit going, to make that impact?
Well, and what's normal going to be? We have no idea, right? One of the biggest adjustments I've had to make is I do quite a bit of public speaking. At least I was starting to do some public speaking about second chance employment before the pandemic hit, and that changed dramatically. and so I do a lot of Zoom public events. I haven't had as many in-person events as I would like, and that really forced me to shift the way that I was going about kind of getting the word out about what I did and talking about second chance employment. So now I do a lot of podcasts. I've been featured in a couple of local magazines, and I've spoken on some panels for organizations both in this area and out of this area. But it's pretty interesting to not be in front of audiences live. I kind of get charged off being with an audience live and the energy that comes with that. And it's been a completely different experience doing it on Zoom. Now obviously I'm really grateful to be able to talk to groups, very easily talk to groups that are in Kansas or in Oregon or in California or in Florida. I'm really happy to be able to do that. But for me, there's nothing like being on stage with a microphone in my hand and talking to a group of people and getting that instant feedback in response, right? So that has been kind of the biggest adjustment for me. But at the same time, I have clothes that I bought 2 years ago that I still get to wear because I never got to wear them anywhere. they're not worn out. Nobody's seen them, so I guess that's good news.
Right, and you may not even have to wear all of them. You might just be able to put on, the t-shirt.
That's right. My sweatpants collection is killing it.
Yeah, it's on point right now, huh? Okay, quickly. I think you said that you had a podcast or you were featured in a podcast. What was the name of the podcast?
I've been on several podcasts. Okay. There's several of them that I don't have my own podcast. I'm a podcast guest. Maybe because I don't have the discipline to sit down and do a podcast every week. I'm not sure what it is, but so far I've been doing mainly on DEI and employment type podcasts. I'll pop up from time to time. If people go to my website at recoveryandwork.org, you can see there's a list of the podcasts, my podcast appearances, and also a good list of resources there for data and organizations that kind of help folks that are looking for second chance employment.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. And that's kind of what I was looking for. I wanted you to be able to throw that little plug out there and, let the people know. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brianna.
Oh, she got you. Oh, yeah. She's on top of it. She's on top of it. Okay. I think I want to ask you a question, related back to UW Tacoma again, or maybe even to your experience on Seattle's campus. So was there a significant learning experience that you took away from being a UW student? And like I said, this can be your undergrad, this can be grad, whatever you want to, tell us about. But, just an experience that, really stuck out to you, or maybe something that, you capitalized, a moment that you capitalized, being a student at UW.
I think the thing that being in the MBA program showed me was that I had the mental capacity and the intelligence to be able to sit in a classroom with, at the time I was in sales and business development. I was working in the mortgage business, and I was in an MBA classroom with people that were managers at some of the biggest companies in Seattle, who were just kind of getting an MBA to advance their careers. And I frankly had a lot of self-doubt. The first couple of weeks that I was in the classroom and I was sitting with these other professionals that seemed to be a lot more accomplished than me, I was pretty intimidated. And I kind of doubted whether that was the right place for me. Am I going to be able to compete with these people? Am I, do I really deserve to be here? But sticking it out and getting exposure to those folks and seeing really that they were just other professionals just like me, it actually gave me quite a confidence boost to know that I could be in work groups with these folks and contribute meaningfully and have my talents appreciated. Really did a lot to kind of boost my confidence, and that was something I was not counting on at all when I entered the program. I figured I would enter the program, I'd walk away from one of the finest universities in the country with an MBA that I could list on my resume and would help me in my career, but I didn't count on what it would do for my self-esteem and sense of being, both as a professional and as a person in general.
I'm glad that you highlighted that, because I feel like a lot of times, like, students of color who may not have, a bunch of mentors or a bunch of resources in spaces like higher education, can kind of beat themselves down. And I know that I personally have kind of experienced that sometimes, things feel out of reach because I'm just like, I don't really have anybody to relate to in this atmosphere or in this environment. But then we also have, like speakers and people like yourself who have been there, done that, and can come back and tell us, be like, nah, it's not all that. It's not all that. And you just need to, kind of remove that head block and allow the process for, self-growth and motivation just to go reach out and grab it. So I appreciate you sharing that.
The other, I'll tell you a dirty little secret that they never tell you about graduate programs. The coursework isn't that hard. The problem is they just give you a ton of it. It's the volume of work that you have that is so difficult to deal with, right? So it really turns into a time management and a workload management situation, right? So that was also something I didn't know, but it's something that I tell as many people as I can. It's the coursework isn't super difficult. There's just going to be a ton of it, and you just got to manage it. That's it.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. I'm looking forward to it. Give me a year or two. We'll be back for it. We'll be back for it. Okay. I think that's kind of a wrap to the questions that I had for you this evening. I want to turn it over to the crowd, but before I do that, Shauna, is there anything that we would like to cover before we jump into our Q&A?
Nope, we can go forward with the Q&A.
Okay.
Great job, by the way, Leland.
Thank you so much. So y'all, crowd, please, if you have any questions, I would really love it and appreciate it if you guys were comfortable and confident enough to come off of mute and ask Ty any questions. If you're not ready for that just yet, absolutely go ahead and take this time to shoot any questions that you may have in the chat. And I will be sure to look at those and get those straight to Ty. How many, I guess by a show of hands or reactions, how many students do we have with us tonight?
Sorry about that. I've got my video going off and on, flashing. Leland, aren't we all always students, right? We're all always students. We should be. I agree with Ty. You've done a fantastic job, and thank you. Ty, I would ask you, as someone who is trying to steward our great university at UW-Tacoma and make sure it's the best it can be and realize its full potential for the students of the region and beyond, looking back at your time, what are your thoughts about, where this university can go and maybe what it could do better or differently, or anything related to your thoughts about UW-Tacoma and its role in our community?
I've actually been pretty pleasantly surprised at how the university's grown over the last 20 years. I'll tell you, University of Washington Tacoma didn't look anything in 1998 like it looks today. Yeah, I mean, you folks they've really done a very nice job of growing the campus and the amenities and the offerings, and I think that's probably reflective also of the growth that Tacoma has had in the last 20 years, right? Tacoma has changed and grown tremendously. I think probably the thing that, just from a personal standpoint, that I would like to see is, I don't feel like I've gotten a lot of outreach from UW-Tacoma. Now, again, I don't live in Pierce County, so maybe it could be as a result of that. But since I graduated, I've been in either King or Snohomish County the entire time. And I don't, I don't feel connected to the university in the sense that the university has been outreaching to me in order to keep that relationship. Again, just a very personal thing, but that was the thing that kind of jumped to mind when you asked the question.
That is so helpful, and thank you for your thoughts and transparency. And I know Shauna wants to change that.
You won't be able to
So,
get rid of me now.
yeah. Anyway, really appreciate that feedback, Ty. Thank you. And you are just know that you are such a proud UW-Tacoma alum. We're really proud to have someone like you out in the community doing what you do. It's fantastic.
Thank you very much. Feel lucky to be doing it.
Absolutely. Thank
I
you,
think,
Leslie.
did I see a question in the chat?
Yes, we did. We had a question from Marty. Marty asked, what advice do you have for students juggling multiple priorities? And I'm guessing that just means, work, probably family dynamics, as well as education.
Well, I always say balance in everything. And I'm a big fan of doing a little bit of something every day, as opposed to doing nothing for 5 days and then trying to sit down and get a bunch of stuff done. So, for me, if I've got multiple things that I'm trying to juggle, I try to, kind of peck away at things to get them done and prioritize doing a little bit of something, every day. So if I've got a big assignment that's due, I'm going to do a little something. Even if it just means I'm going to read 5 pages, or I'm going to write, a couple of paragraphs. I'm going to stay involved with that every day. If I want to make time for family, I'm going to do a little something. Even if I can't, go for 2 hours with the kids and go do something, I'm going to engage with them for some period of time every single day, just to kind of keep that connection. So that would be my advice, is try to schedule yourself, and kind of do these things on a continual basis, as opposed to putting something on the back burner for a while, then trying to come back to it.
Gotcha. Marty, thank you for asking that question. Ty, thank you for that answer. Really
I hope that answers
appreciate
the
it.
question, Marty.
Okay, Shauna has a question.
So, so we do have a program or a group for the UW-Tacoma PostPrison Pathways, where we do work with students who were formerly incarcerated. So there's a lot going on there. I don't know if you knew about that.
I didn't.
You said you didn't, or you did?
I did not.
Oh, okay. So they are on Facebook. I know you hate to go on Facebook, but they are on Facebook, but they're in other places too. You can actually send an email from Facebook, and I just wanted to share that with you, but just wanted to see if you even knew about that.
No, I did not. Can you drop the link in the chat?
I sure will, and I'll email the information to you.
Even better. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, Ty, but I think we need to get you back on campus sooner or later, so you can come check us out. Like you said, the campus was probably in its infancy, but now it's on its way to glory.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Please, we definitely want you to come back and come visit if you have the time. We know you're a busy guy, but I think I speak for a lot of people here in saying that they would love to see you as well, and just for your own experience, and just see what the campus has really become, and just see it around.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Are there any other questions in the chat?
And
Okay.
okay,
Linda, go ahead.
So given the high relative cost of education, can you just talk a little bit about, the decision to go beyond undergraduate, like how you made the decision, what the not so much what your personal financial arrangements look like, but just could you just talk a little bit about go, don't go kind of decision from financial standpoint?
Yeah, well, I think the decision that every person has to make. Yeah, I think there's basically 2 reasons why people would pursue a graduate degree. You would pursue a graduate degree because you feel like it's going to give you some advantage in your professional life, or you just do it for the knowledge, right? Those are, in my mind, those are probably 2 reasons why people do it. I did it because I felt like it would probably provide me with some sort of advantage professionally. And I was young enough at the time, I wasn't super young, but I was young enough at the time that I could, in the long run, I felt like I could justify the cost. And I think that's the calculus that a lot of folks need to make. Now, if you are And I certainly don't mean to denigrate any graduate program. But if you're going to go get a master's in a program that isn't necessarily going to give you a return on your investment, that may be something that you want to think about seriously, about whether it makes sense. I would imagine that these days a graduate program is probably going to cost somebody in the neighborhood of 60 grand, 60 to 80 grand. I'm spitballing here, I'm guessing. So, if it is not going to give you a return on your investment, is that investment that you should really be making? Is there, instead of going and spending $60,000 to $80,000 on a degree, can you go to work for a single organization, work your way up over a number of years, perhaps achieve the same success without having the additional price tag that would come along with the degree? Or conversely, is getting that graduate degree going to cut the amount of time that you would need to spend in the organization? So, these are all decisions that people need to make on an individual basis, obviously. But when I made my decision, I was pretty clear in my mind that at some point in my life, I was going to want to own something. And for me, an MBA in entrepreneurship kind of made sense at the time. And it continues to make sense. I'm confident that what I learned in the MBA program serves me well today. And, it never, I also, wanted to be able to say that I had a master's degree. So there was some ego involved in it for me as well, without a doubt. But I do think I got significant benefit out of the education that I got from that program.
Awesome. Thank you for that question. I know that's, I think and I'm speaking personally here, but also maybe, I think for a lot of students in my position and maybe even my generation, deep down, we kind of are having that, internal debate, like, should we continue to pursue school? Or are there other resources and opportunities out there for us that maybe have removed the impact of school or the impact of having a graduate degree these days? Personally, I want somebody to pay for mine. I don't really want to have to shell out another, I don't want to do that. I don't have to shell out another 60,000 for that. But yeah, just having that debate with self and kind of reflecting on our capabilities and the purpose, because it's pricey. That price tag, it can hurt a lot. And like you said, is it going to be worth it? Are you going to get your return on investment for what you are putting into it? So,
yeah, but Leland, what you just said is obviously something I left out, but super important. Is a company going to pay for some of it or all of it? If the answer is yes, then I say do it.
Yeah.
So unless the company is requiring that you stay for another 5 years and you don't really like the company, obviously that's a different situation. But if you generally like the company and you think you want to stay and they'll supplement some portion of it or all of it, then definitely.
Absolutely. And we got a little comment in the chat. Marty said, "Thank you for your candor, Mr. Reed."
Well,
Keeping it real.
I try to keep it real.
Absolutely.
How do the kids say it? I try to keep it 100. That's how the young people say it these days.
Exactly. I love it. All righty. I want to do one more last check if we had any other questions from the crowd. Anything okay. I see one. And excuse me if I say the name wrong. Linnell.
Yes, and I'm a friend of Tys from a long time ago, and we haven't even been in contact, but I happened to see his post yesterday, and I just want to say that this was a great discussion. And Ty, I just wanted to publicly say I'm very proud of you and what you've accomplished.
Oh, thank you so much. So good to hear your voice. We'll have to do lunch or something sometime soon.
Absolutely. And someone had mentioned, just the importance, regardless of the format, of continuing education. And I, at my company, there is a diversity and inclusion group, and I sat in on one of their meetings this past week, and just, it just really is important for that continuing education. And go dogs.
Thanks, Linnell.
Thank you. Any other more comments? We can absolutely give Mr. Reed his flowers We don't have to email it to them. We can say anything we want to say right now.
That's right. Give people their flowers while they're alive, y'all.
Exactly. Okay. All right. I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Shauna. Ty, thank you again for, coming and sharing your story and dropping some absolute gems on us tonight. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Leland. Thank you, UW Tacoma and Shauna and everybody for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Leland. Thank you, Ty. Thank everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up, but our next Alumni Speaker Series event will be on December 7th. It'll be with Courtney Acoff. She is the Pierce County representative for Derek Kilmer's office. So we'll be having her interviewed. Also, I wanted to share with you about the Tacoma Husky Landing. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat. It's the networking hub, so you can network with students, faculty, staff, and community on there. Good resource for finding out about different industries, especially for those for students who are looking for jobs or just want to talk to someone about their experience and how to get where they are. So I'll go ahead and put that right now. And then we do have an Apple Cup viewing party coming up on April 26th, which is Black Friday. And I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat for that as well. Registration will close, so you'll want to jump in there as soon as possible if you decide to go. If you go to the game, that's great too, but just wanted to have that option for people who are not going out to the stadium. So that's all I had. And with that, I'll bid you adieu. You can linger a bit. We have about 5 minutes left if you would like to. If not, thank you again for coming.